We are road dogging right now in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the best Airbnb in the business, which is a bank with vaults and about 11
Yes.
beds, bedrooms. And we're playing York tonight at the Skid Row Garage. We did Philly last night, and then it's Pottstown tomorrow on our little Poconos type Vic Sexy Noise revival with Tim O'Ellis, Kevin Shea, myself, and Tim Hall. And we're just road dogging.
Yeah, it's fun. And we've been to this we've stayed at a lot of different fun Airbnbs, but when you start getting to the guts of America, they can get pretty interesting. And yeah, this person bought
Yes,
an old bank.
from mansions to frat houses, and then we have the bank.
This place is fun.
And that's what road dogging is all about. For those of you that don't know, if you're going to be a road dog, get in line.
Being a road dog in July in the United States means it's hot as fuck. And it just, I mean, we were in Baltimore. It was 100 degrees with like 95% humidity. Yesterday in Philly was 100 degrees with 95% humidity. Philly, man, great show last night.
So our friends in Phoenix, where it's 115 to fucking degrees, friends in Death Valley, and the whole world's on fire. Let's face it.
Which brings me to a story. Air conditioning theft is spiking. It's through the roof right now. So people
fucking
are,
blame it? Yeah.
Well, exactly. But people are ripping out window units and running off with them. You know what? I guess the markup must be supply and demand. It must be to get an air conditioner must cost a shitload of money right now if you didn't prepare in the winter. I guess that's what's going on. Because you can't bypass an electric bill. Simon, are you managing to stay cool?
Yeah, I have my air conditioner running right next to me right now, and it's one of those stand-in ones that it doesn't go in the window, so it's hard to steal.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, I suggest the Sicilian air conditioner, which is a cold, wet washcloth on the back of your neck. And that actually does bring quite a bit of relief. Put it on the pulse points, or go take an ice bath.
So other things that go up in the summer, I didn't realize this. 100,000 violent lawnmower accidents a year in the United States. 100,000. There's this poor little boy, Joey Mercurio, in Long Island, just playing in his front lawn. His daddy, Mark DeLuca, ran over his foot. Next thing you know, he's being airlifted to Boston's Children's Hospital. And the best of the best couldn't save it. They had to amputate his leg. But this is way more common than people realize. I mean, which makes sense. You have kids running around barefoot and dad's or mom or whoever's lawn, mowing the grass. Yeah, this is a very common thing. I mean, Simon, didn't one of your friends, you don't see this anymore, lawn dart?
I remember, yeah, I remember playing with lawn darts. Those things are terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have. Yeah, you have. I mean, you're just asking for it.
Look, summer is a dangerous time. Uptick in tick-borne diseases, shark attacks. We saw 2 accidents today from people being so stupid because it's so hot their brains are melting. I mean, it's a dangerous time, summer. I mean, summertime, and the living is not motherfucking easy.
Last time I went out in Philly, and summertime nights in Philly, I mean, packs of kids were like ages 10 to 14, kind of scary actually. At like 1 a.m. I mean, obviously the home situation can't be great if they're doing that.
Philly has a teenage mob scene problem, though.
Yeah,
in the bars, 11-year-olds.
It's weird.
Rampaging.
No, 11-year-olds went to the bars and they basically started looting the place. And like the bartenders, they're like, "Get out of here!" And they're like, and one of the kids, I have to say, like, I was like, "Does this kid have a gun?" Because he had this kind of psycho look in his eyes, and he was like making eye contact with like everyone and like trying to spook people. I was like, where's this going? But yeah, I wasn't psyched about walking the streets of Philly late last night, even though I enjoyed that city. We had a great concert, and I enjoyed the people and the food, etc.
Well, the museum, the Mausoleum of Contemporary Art, MoCA, is always a great place to play. But Philly has a problem. It has a big problem, like a lot of American cities right now. The heat is exasperating everything. It doesn't make it better. It's what it is. We got to deal. But in the meantime, what we're dealing with is we're just road dogging to the next show.
One last point is like, I just feel like the pressure is on people more than ever. And now that the Supreme Court has basically ruled that they can round up poor people and just incarcerate them, I mean, like, where's all this going? So
look, if the Congress, the president, the basically every American institution and corporation is corrupt, is criminal. How do you expect that not to trickle down? Now that's trickle down economy, if you ask me. It's like it trickles down so that everybody has to or will become eventually a criminal, because that is the nature of this nation. And with that said, this is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, Simon Slater, and our guest today, Kramer of Shimmy-Disc. Have a great summer. Good luck. You're going to need it. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Kramer, who is a master musician, composer, producer, record label. Between 87 with Shimmy-Disc and 99, releasing 105 by last count LPs, with so many alt bands at the time, including like GWAR, very weird, White Zombie, Will Oldham, Urge Overkill, Galaxie 500, the list goes on. And also putting out notable poets, such as some Ginsberg stuff, a Bukowski dedication, the Hunter S. Thompson, Kentucky Derby is decadent and depraved readings by a variety of people, including Dr. John, Tim Robbins, etc. And still going strong today. As a matter of fact, Kramer, welcome. We just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you. Don't forget Tuli Kupferberg. He's
I can't name them all, but you can.
oh well, he's sort of king of the universe, you know. And they're making a beautiful documentary about him, and I can't wait to see it. My gosh! And I think our friend Thurston is narrating it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
When was the first time you two collided or met, or whatever, any way you want to put it?
Well, we crossed paths a lot. Should I tell the short
I'm curious because I don't know it.
I love the story you told me, because, of course, I didn't remember 1 second of it. But then again, my brain hurt like a warehouse. Go ahead.
Well, we'd crossed paths a lot, because we both played at CBGB's a lot and other places, and we were at parties and always crossing paths and always saying hi and acknowledging each other's existence. But it wasn't until a B.A.L.L gig at CBGB's. B.A.L.L was a band I had with Don Fleming, B.A.L.L. B.A.L.L kind of rocked.
What did B.A.L.L stand for?
It stood for Kiss My Ass.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not kidding either. Ask Don Fleming. He'll
I believe you.
Oh, Don might say bite my ass.
But I would say the B would make sense, but maybe you have some kind of code. I don't know what's going on.
It didn't make any sense, and there was no code. It was just one of those
catchy
things.
name.
Yeah, and it was right before the show that Lydia approached me, and it's the first time she came right up to me, looking with that look on her face like she had something to say to me. And she said, "Are we balling tonight, Kramer?" And it scared the shit out of me, because I was still kind of a kid, and
I was too.
Yeah, that's right. We were all kids. And I think my lower lip quivered a little bit, and I thought that everything started running through my head very, very quickly. And then I realized maybe 10 seconds later that she was just, she was kidding about the balling part. But it was a great gig, and then we spoke afterwards, and since then it's kind of been on and off. And then we kind of lost touch for a couple of decades as I moved to Florida,
Where in Florida?
Well, I'm not there anymore. I was in South Florida, the bad part, like not far from Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, but you weren't in Miami. You're like around
No, I was
Fort Pierce area around there.
I was in northern Broward. I was just south of Fort Lauderdale, literally about 5 minutes from the Fort Lauderdale airport. That's why I was looking to get out fast,
Yeah, but Miami's like what, 20, 25 minutes from there, right?
Yeah, Miami's like 20 minutes and nice
Hmm.
architecture, but you go there on the wrong night, you get caught in a shootout, and the Russians have taken over now. And
But what made you choose to go there? Economy? I
no,
mean,
my mom tripped over the cat and cracked her head open. And I got down there just in time for her to have a stroke, like right in front of me in the hospital. And if
oh,
and if it hadn't happened in the hospital, she wouldn't have survived it. And that's what the doctor said afterwards. We were able to save her, but this isn't good. You're going to wish that this had happened at home and that it would be over, because what you're going to see is 18 months that are going to make you hate me. And I said, what do you mean?
oh,
And he said, well, over the next 6 months, she'll make an enormous improvement. Her aphasia will go away. She'll seem to be getting more and more back into the swing of things. She'll start asking questions like, why can't I drive? And why aren't I allowed to go for a walk by myself? And then right at about 6 months, an approximately 12-month decline will begin. That will be very, very slow. And then at about 6 months, it will start to gather speed. And that's exactly what happened. And
How did
she,
he know
all from the
this? How
stroke.
did the doctor know this?
because doctors in Florida who deal with old people who crack their heads open or have strokes see this
All the
10
time.
times a day. And
So
my
Kramer, have you taken to wearing a helmet in the house?
no, not me, not yet. I have my cat doesn't get under my feet the way my mom's cat
So,
did.
but did you manage to connect with like Rat Bastard and the whole
Oh
kind
God,
of
yes.
noise scene down there? So you had a whole crew down there. So what?
Yeah, but I didn't really connect with them much. I was flying around the world producing this band and that band, and the noise thing was, Rat is still deaf, in case anybody's wondering. So it was a little hard to work with him. I wanted to collaborate with him, but when I was in the studio with him, I'd say, "What's that horrible 4K buzz coming out of the right speaker?" And he'd say, "What buzz?" So he literally was, missing a whole lot of things that made it
Okay.
possible for me to effectively, create something good. And that's not to say that Rat didn't on his own create something good. I just think it was more by chance than craft or skill.
Yeah,
And
we love Rat.
we love
In
Rat
all
to death.
in all of his forms, in all of
Yes,
his
we love
glory.
Rat to death. And especially the International Noise Festival. How
Oh
much
yes,
you
classic.
know about that? Where
I
each
I
band
participated. I participated in it before. Yes.
so you know that there are something like 200 bands and every band gets 10 minutes.
Well, 15 with the crossover switch
Okay.
over. Yeah, no,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
it's on a.
to me, it sounds like a fucking nightmare whether you're there hearing it or not. It just does. I'm just saying, but that's me.
It's
Uh,
something to experience. It's something to
It
experience.
was a nightmare, but it was also interesting because bands would come from Japan, China, and Mongolia and India, knowing that they were only going to play for 10 minutes.
Yes.
and
And
you
they
know what?
loved it.
I love a 10-minute set. I didn't invent it, but I certainly partook in it in
But
the early
unplanned.
days.
Unplanned, I'm sure, right? Like I played with B.A.L.L, and we rehearsed a week, the entire set, 10 songs. We didn't get through the first song.
Oh no, it was planned a 7 to 13 minute set with Teenage
Oh,
Jesus. Nobody could take any more than that, not even me.
oh, wow. Okay, well,
But yeah, I mean, look,
Churchill's
yeah,
is gone, by the way.
I
Churchill's.
know, I know, I know.
well, let's start at the recent, because let's start with where we met, and then we're going to go back in time and do
Okay,
a
okay.
whole cataloging. So we just met in Asheville a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, you were playing at a wonderful place called Fleetwood's that used to have a Fleetwood out front and doesn't anymore.
Now they have like spaceship
I've seen those. Yeah.
cars from an
Yeah,
amusement park.
I don't know. I've written letters to him. I'm getting no reply. I don't know what happened to the Fleetwood.
Interesting.
Changes all the time. But we were there. I mean, we having not met each other in person for many a decade. Previous to that, you came to see my show with JT Haversatt, stand-up comedy, stand-up tragedy.
Yes.
But you had invited me, and I was very happy for that, to this your latest project, which is coming out soon, which is the readings of Edgar Allan Poe. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Cool.
Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning of that. I guess about 15 years ago, the great Hal Wilner made a record of Edgar Allan Poe readings called Closed on Account of Rabies, inspired by the recent revelation, whether now it's true or false, I don't know. I think somebody found a lock of Poe's hair and suddenly decided that he had not died from absinthe in the gutter, but rather from rabies. So that inspired Hal to bring together a bunch of artists to read Poe stories, and it was unique in Al's in Hal's oeuvre. How do you pronounce that, Lydia? Is it oeuvre?
Sounds good to me.
Well, all right. It was unique in his catalog in that almost all of his spoken word records were spoken word and music records. He would bring in Bill Frisell to compose an entire suite. He would bring in Mark Rebo, Ralph Carney, Arto Lindsay, all these different people. But for this record, it was just people reading the Poe stories. It was Christopher Walken reading The Telltale Heart, for example, things like that. And when he was finished with it, he thought maybe I should have added some music. And 15 years later, not long before he died of COVID, when it all began in the first week of April 2020, he was one of the first to go. He had been planning to do another Poe record, this time with music. And the producer, the crazy person who pays for all of these poetry records, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Lydia, but one lunatic, Texas Jew millionaire, wonderful guy named Michael Minzer, paid for all of this stuff. Like every time Hal went into the studio to do a poetry record, Minzer did it. And Minzer is basically just obsessed with American poetry, American poets, and sometimes American short story writers and poets like Edgar Allan Poe. And his whole thing is about, he produced the Hunter Thompson record. He produced the several Corso records. He produced the more recent one. Anyway, I'm forgetting. He produced all of these things. So he called me about a week after Hal died and said, Hal was doing this Poe record. By the way, this is a great impersonation of him. Hal was going to do another Poe record. We got to get to work on this, we got to get to work. And I said, Michael, I'm pretty sure I'm mourning right now. And maybe for a little while, can we pick this conversation up in a few months? A few months later, he called me up and he said, Kramer, they just removed one of my testicles. I'm 77 years old. I'm going to die soon. We have got to do this fucking Poe record. And I said, okay, let me think about this. And over the course of the next couple of days, I spent a good deal of time thinking about it. And my conclusion was that I was definitely still mourning. Hal and I were like brothers. Hal would send me his recent releases. I'd listen to them. I'd send him my new solo stuff. He'd listen. And actually, I'll tell you a great story later if you remind me about one of the last things he said to me. To make a long story short, this went on for about 2 years. I just didn't feel like picking up the mantle of the great Hal Willner, and I knew he would be fine with it, and not that it would matter to him, but he'd be fine, and this is something I could definitely do. But in the end, I just said, I'm not sure if I'm really the person to do this. And he said, Kramer, you're really disappointing me. And he hung up. And 2 days later, my wife came into the studio and she said, Michael Minzer, that's the guy who produced all of Hal's poetry records, right? And I said, yeah, why? And she said, well, I just got a notification from Citibank that he deposited $10,000 in your bank account.
As he should. Thank you.
I mean, when the hard sale is actually in the black and not the red.
Sideways.
Yeah, that's a creative move.
Yeah. So as the dutiful employee that I am, I got straight to work. And I think one of the first things I did was I had Thurston and Eva do a piece in unison called To My Mother. So they were speaking it in unison. And at the end of the session, I said, I'm thinking of some other really creative people who should be involved in this record. And before Thurston had a chance to say anything, you could see the wheels turning in his head, it just dawned on me that I should ask Lydia. And I didn't have Lydia's contact info, so I got it from Thurston. And within a day, I think we were communicating. And about a month later, I was in New York in the studio with Lydia. And did you nail it on the first take or the first and a half take? I can't remember.
I'm a one-take wonder. What can I say?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 1.5, maybe something. I don't know.
No, there's a lot of mystique about the one takers, which is really impressive. But how many times have you produced a record where someone you really had to dig it out of them, but the results were great, but it just took a million takes? Okay, I'm just curious.
Tim, that's a great question, but I want to know who else is on this album because I came in right after Eric Mingus. Is that his name?
Yes, you met Eric Mingus there. Yes, that is
Charles Mingus's son.
Only sonically,
yes.
I don't think we met, but he was in right before I was.
Yes,
son of Charles Mingus. Yeah, let's just talk about who else is on this before. That's a great question, though, Tim. Pulling stuff out.
Okay, well, the first person on the record is doing the title track, To One in Paradise, which is the title of the record. It's To One in Paradise for Hal Willner. That's actually the subtitle of the record. And the first person is Jonas Policewoman. And she and I sat at a piano and created something side by side, four hands on one piano. And then she read the text over it, another one-take wonder. She's amazing. The second piece is by the great unsung theater hero of downtown New York City, Edgar Oliver, who you must know,
we
right?
love him. We've had him on the show. We love him. I've performed with him a few times.
Yeah. Well,
Edgar Oliver. I mean, he's the perfect. He's almost like a Poe creation.
He did El Dorado. Goody.
El Dorado.
And then the third piece is Thurston and Eva. Fourth piece is Eric Mingus. The fifth piece is A Dream Within a Dream by Britta Phillips from Dean and Britta and from Luna. Beautiful voice. And I got Teller to do the last piece on side A.
Penn and Teller.
Teller. So you got him to speak on record.
Yes, and there's a great story behind that. I called him and I asked him if he loved Poe, and he said, I adore Poe. And I said, well, I want you to be a part of this record. And it's the poetry. It's not any short stories. It's reading of a poem. And he said, which poem were you thinking? And I said, well, I was thinking silence.
Ha ha ha.
And there was a long
silence.
And he said, it doesn't speak to me.
Oh,
and
I think Teller is such a genius.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. He is a genius.
He is a great scholar of all the arts and history.
Very smart and just does beautiful magic.
Yeah. And he is actually a Greek and Latin scholar, so this meant a lot.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and after he said it doesn't speak to me, I left a long silence, and then I said, it's really hard over the phone to discern whether or not you're being facetious with me. And he said, well, I was being facetious, and I was hoping for a laugh, but I've just read the poem online, and I Googled it, and I'm not sure about that one. And I said, okay, let me look through the stuff. And a week later, I called him and said, how about Evening Star? And he fell in love with it. It's a beautiful piece. Side B begins with Anne Waldman. Thank you. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
She does Fairyland. Second piece on side B, Lydia doing Dreamland. How about that? Fairyland followed by Dreamland. And then Larry Ratso Sloman, Ratso, right? You must have had him on the show, haven't you?
Haven't yet, but
no.
That Jew never shuts up. You should have him on the show. He's great. He does The Sleeper, and Chloe Webb does Silence. You know Chloe, right? You guys know Chloe?
Chloe Webb?
Not in person.
No.
Chloe played, oh my God, this is 66, coming up on 66 years old. The memory is starting to go. The Alex Cox film about Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
She played Nancy.
Sid and Nancy? Yeah.
Yeah. Chloe played Nancy.
Yeah.
Chloe played Nancy. And then novelist Rick Moody does Imitation. Jennifer Charles from Elysian Fields does The Lake. And then,
an amazing vocalist.
She's amazing. And then the final piece on the record is the only piece with no music. We got an archival recording of Allen Ginsberg reading the Bells at Naropa.
Oh, amazing.
And it's part of a lecture too, so it's an amazing thing. And I just didn't
Well, you did a great job also, besides on the music and compiling, the people that are part of this. The cover is really stunning with this tin type photography that you used to bring like this, all very haunting feel. So I think the cover artwork is just spectacular and goes so well with the music and the readings.
Thank you. I had the cover in my head before I had any idea what I was going to do with the music. It all just appeared in my head. That's often the way it is with Shimmy-Disc, though. When a collaboration is planned, the visuals start to come together in my head. Yeah.
Interesting.
So now you're in the mountains of North Carolina. So how fresh is the air there? How are you enjoying?
The air is so fresh. It's one of the reasons I moved here. I flew here 2 years ago from South Florida to produce a record for J.D. Pincus and Tall, Tall Trees. And the plane landed, and the way planes land, they go, and the air fills up in the cabin. Well, that air seemed to have a lot of oxygen to me. And I got off the plane at what looked like an airplane hangar that turned out to be the airport. There were 6 gates. You've flown in here, right, Lydia?
I usually drive in from
I've
somewhere
never
else.
flown into Asheville.
No,
Yeah, I'm
we-
always
yeah.
driving it. Well, I mean, the drive-in is beautiful too, though.
Oh, it's
Driving-
gorgeous.
We don't drive through the hangar though.
Yeah.
No.
And I arrived, and JD Pincus and Mike Savino, who calls himself Tall Tall Trees, picked me up. They said, "What do you want to eat?" And I said, "I want sushi." And JD Pincus said, "I want burgers." And Mike said, "I know the place to go." 10 minutes later, we're pulling up to a restaurant, had a big sign out front, burgers and sushi.
That's pretty
Burgers and sushi. And I thought, this is an interesting town. And over the course of the next 10 days, I had the best Ethiopian food, the best Thai, the best tacos, if you can believe it.
We had great Thai food. I mean, we love spice.
Oh, and great Indian food and just food. And then on my 9th of 10 days there, I went to Claude Coleman's birthday party. Claude was half of my rhythm section in the Ween. I don't know if you remember that far back, but when Ween
Sure.
became the Ween, Ween went from a duo to a quartet. They added me on bass and Claude on drums, and I went to his birthday party, and he had 5 acres on top of a little hill and a beautiful little 3-bedroom house, and you could kind of see his neighbor over the next hill. And I thought, yeah, this is it. And I asked Claude, I said, "This is North Carolina, right?" And he said, "Yes, it's the Deep South." And I said, "Okay, so what am I dealing with if I want to move here?" And he said, "I know what you're talking about. My kids are mixed race, clearly, and his kids really are. You can tell they're mixed race." And he said he has never had a problem. He goes to every school meeting, every parent-teacher association meeting, everything. And he said,
I love the South because there is rebellion. I mean, look, we think of it. We can't paint all the South as Texas or Louisiana because it's much bigger than that. But within that the mania of what we know is to be true is rebellion, is artist, is weirdos, and is just a sense of fuck you, you conservative cunts, leave us alone, we're gonna do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah, and Asheville is kind of a liberal island in the middle of it all, and the thing that really nailed it for me was I like to send postcards, and on my last day here, I went to the post office to send a postcard. And this guy came out of the post office. He looked like one of these crazy wrestlers. He was literally like 6'8", 6'10". He had a leather vest on, tattoos everywhere. His beard was braided in 3 places, reflector sunglasses, huge cowboy hat. And he's coming toward me kind of like this, like a wrestler getting into it. And he's looking me right in the eye. And I'm thinking, what did I do? I'm going to get my ass kicked? Why? What did I do? And when he gets about 10 feet in front of me, he goes, "Ain't this a beautiful fucking day? Can you believe it? This is one of the most beautiful days. Y'all have a good one. Y'all have a great day." And I just said, "I'm moving here."
That's it. I'm in.
Yeah, you know, it's funny.
Interesting. I excuse me, but I send postcards too. And as a matter of fact, last night I was with Kevin Shea, who drums with us and many other people, and we were watching Dark Side of the Ring, which doesn't have a lot of big 6'10" or badass wrestlers, and I had to give him a postcard I didn't get a chance to send from Europe because I often send him postcards. I do that too. It's a lost art.
It's a lost art. Writing is a lost art. I still write letters.
Well, there's also, you know, I did have some.
No. This is what I wrote about you.
Oh, thanks for the notes. Good.
Writing is a lost art. I got to get on to your friend in Texas. I got a lot of writing that needs to come out. Hello.
Oh my God, yeah.
Was the dismantling of Moog? Was that kind of are people mourning about that? Did you know people that work there, or is it just kind of like, oh, that's just business and whatever?
A little bit. You know, terrible things happen here, and people get over it in a day. It's really weird. And I'm sure when they elect that lunatic governor, people will get over that pretty quickly too, and all they'll do is try and vote him out the next time. You know, we got this. You've heard about this crazy guy who's going to be governor. Should we just avoid politics?
Yeah, I mean,
look,
it's
universe. You know, I just decided I have.
Yesterday was pretty brutal.
Party. I'm going to end on. I'm going to end on this because every place is going into fascism. We know this, including America. I'm going into factism. Factism.
Well, you know,
if they're gonna be Nazis, I'm gonna be, as I once called myself, a feminazi. So they better fucking watch out because the conspiracy of women cow is coming back hardcore. I'm just saying. Now let's talk about real hardcore. Let's talk about the Butthole Surfers for a minute.
Okay.
Now, because you played with the Butthole Surfers, one of my favorite bands, and as a matter of fact, I had asked Paul Leary if he would be in my band Retrovirus, which Tim was in, and he just said, I said, look, I'm the anti-Gibby Haynes. I know Gibby. I'm like, easy to work with. It's all cool. And he just said, no, I'm just gonna sit on my couch and collect checks. I'm like, oh fuck you. All right.
And
But
he
I
said
love the Butthole Surfers.
he said something like, "You shouldn't take it personally."
didn't.
I doubt you did anyway. But he's been saying that for about 40 years. He's
Well,
really
he's lucky he can do that. I can't wait till I can sit on my couch and collect royalties, but they're gonna have to be in somebody else's name. I'm just saying.
well. They're not Butthole Surfer royalties. You know, it's most
You too?
no Sublime.
Oh, okay. Whoa. All right.
Yep. Yep.
How was
So
so
he got some
period,
points on that one.
What
Clearly.
period were you playing with the Butthole Surfers? How did that even come about?
Well, in 1983, I was in a band with Eugene Chadbourne called Shockabilly.
Who's been on the podcast? Eugene.
Oh,
And who Tim
Yeah.
has played with.
I
Right.
play with him. Yeah.
And he and I toured in Texas, and we ran into them. I think the first gig we did with them was an underground gig at some place, and they appeared as the Ashtray Babyheads. And I became very close with Paul at the time. And then the next time we played, they opened for us as Butthole Surfers. And it was, I had never seen anything like that before in my life. And I could see that their bass player thing was falling apart. And Paul was saying, we got a different bass player every 3 fucking months. This is ridiculous. And I said, well, if you ever get in a pinch, you just call me. And I happened to be, I can't remember exactly the details, but I happened to be somewhere hearing that they had gotten in trouble again. And I called Paul. And he said, well, but we would have to rehearse for a week and the tour starts in 3 days. And I said, I don't have to rehearse. If you've only put out 2 records, I know all the music. So
Nice.
I've got one of those, I think they call it relative musical memory or something like that. Like if I hear a song, as long as it's not ultra complicated, and
Yeah.
it's not complicated, it's Texas blues. It really is just blues stuff.
Sure.
It's 1 or 2 chords. And I knew the songs. So I joined the band in 1985. And during that time, I felt like I was in the greatest band in the world. And maybe I was at the time. It was a riot. It was before the projectors. It was before Kathleen dancing nude on stage. It was right before all
How
that.
much LSD was involved?
On my part, none. Somebody had to drive the van. But, Paul would get very upset with me if I said that he was doing a lot of LSD. I'm not sure quite.
I mean, you don't have to throw people under the bus, but I've heard that through the grapevine, as
Well,
they say.
there was a lot of tripping going on, but it was mostly Gibby eating whatever drugs were around and drinking a whole bottle of Jim Beam before the show. I think he called it instant show. And he would start drinking about an hour beforehand. That was similar to GG Allen, who would start chewing X-Lax an hour before the show.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
you just look. You just in one sentence put in somebody who I think is an absolute psychedelic genius and somebody that I just think was a drunken shitting wreck. But I'm just going to keep that opinion to myself. Not
That's quite all right. I'm not sure how I got roped into that. I think
roped into GG Allen.
Yeah, it was one gig.
Sorry to hear it.
It was Super Scum. I think it was Jay Mascis who invited me, or Gerard, or something. It was me and Gerard, Steve Shelley, and Jay Mascis. That was the band, the Super Scum.
Oh,
One gig at the Cat Club, and one song, not even.
one song.
Anyway, back to the.
You know what? I just got to put this out there. If he would have not had any songs and just done his heinous performance art, I might have tolerated him a little bit more, but I just couldn't do it.
We tolerated
Anyway.
Karen Finley, didn't we?
What's that?
We tolerated Karen Finley, and
Well,
her genius.
yeah, but she had something to fucking say.
She sure did, yeah. Yeah, no, he was about spectacle, but in many ways the Buttholes were about spectacle too, except for Paul, whose musical talent made those records,
so good.
He made
so
those
good.
those early records classics.
Oh, they're classic. And just kind of rolling with a crew like that, on the spectacle side, did the cops harass you much on the road?
A little bit when I was with them, but we were in places that were really under the radar. I think aside from in Europe, where the cops seemed to be right looking over our shoulder at all
Sniffing
times.
you out.
They've never seen anything like that in 1985. The closest we came to a real run-in with them was in El Paso. But it was interesting because it was a club that apparently was famous for being shut down by the police. It was a mobile club. It wasn't a physical place. place. And some of the gigs were actually in parking lots and things like that. So we got there, and it turned out to be somebody had built a stage like at the far end of town, in the warehouse part of town, at the edge of a parking lot. And the police came really, really quickly. And I wouldn't say they were violent, but they were scary as shit, and they shut it all down. And the crowd just seemed to love it. Like, that's why they do it, you know,
How was the European tour with the Butthole?
Well,
Butthole
no one had ever
Surfers?
seen anything like that before. The biggest problem with the European tour is that I had just done like 4 European tours with Shockabilly, and we had done really well there. Shockabilly broke up. No one had ever heard of the Butthole Surfers. So I called my booking agent and I said, this is going to be one of the biggest American bands of the 20th century. You have to help me book them. Oh, but nobody has ever heard of them, and the record is not available here. Do me a favor, trust me, do it anyway. So the problem, Lydia, was when we got to these venues, it said Butthole Surfers featuring Kramer.
Oh,
Oh,
Bad move.
and
Nobody liked that.
politically in the band, you're saying?
Even you didn't like that.
Oh, well, I was appalled, of course, but
Yeah.
Gibby and Paul were.
But you could have explained that to them, like, look, I just got us a tour, and they came up with this.
I did explain to them, and they were they were still angry about it because, I mean, their
Yeah,
names aren't even on the records, you know?
Right.
But yeah, you know, look, they got there, they played. You got to start somewhere.
And we did that huge festival.
Was a sousaphone involved in that tour?
No. That was like 3 bass players before me.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And we played that huge festival, and I think it was Nijmegen, and the next day, and the cover of not the art section, but the main section of the Dutch newspaper, it said "Sensation at Free Floor Festival," and on the left it had a picture of Robert Smith, and on the right it had a picture of Gibby. So we had gone to being completely unknown to being the band that everybody wanted. So all of us
standing next to Robert Smith on the front page.
And every booking agent and club owner in that part of Europe was at that festival. So we were inundated with offers to do many, many more gigs and everything. It was just an amazing time. And you know, the next time I toured Europe, which was 2 years later, there were dozens of bands trying to be the Butthole Surfers. I think the first one was called Gay Bikers on Acid. You know, the similar kind of spectacle thing. Of course, nobody could ever match Gibby's.
When was the last time you ran into Gibby?
I talked to him on the phone a few months ago because there's a documentary happening now.
Okay.
But I haven't seen him since about 10 years ago when I had lunch with him at Cafe Mogador in New York.
Oh, yeah. Great cafe.
Yeah.
He lives in Red Hook. I run into him sometimes.
And he coaches his son's baseball team.
Yeah, he's into sports. Exactly.
He's a dad. He's a dad.
So you put out a few Daniel Johnston recordings. How was working with him at the time, and when did you first come into contact or start working with him?
Well, I started hearing of him when everybody else did, 83, 84, 85, those cassettes that he was putting out. And it seemed clear to me that this is a guy who should stand in front of a good microphone and really sing instead of, like, you know, those cassettes that he made, he recorded them on a cassette player that he would put on top of the piano. So the cassette player was shaking as he was hitting the notes on the piano, and everything just sounded terrible. And I needed to get him in the studio, but he was at that time experiencing delusions of grandeur. So he came to New York about a week or two after he stopped taking his medication. And he was barely able to get through a song without crying. There were actually a few songs on 1990 where you can hear him breaking up. And there's even one point in one of the choruses where I could not get him to sing it without crying, and I had to fill in and like create a chorus of childlike voices behind him. And I didn't manage to get 10 or 12 songs. I only managed to get, I think, 6. So I had to fill it in with a live thing from Pier Platters and a couple of other things that I wouldn't say I cobbled them together, but it was very, you know, it was composed. I think I did a good job of putting together a full-length record of things that were not all entirely professional recordings. I think that record will live forever, I think.
Yeah, you know, I have a question with that. I don't know if you've dove into this yet, but the whole AI stems technology and just going into older things or even just grabbing demos and having the robots, the artificial intelligence, like pimp it up. Have you experimented with any of this shit yet?
Nope.
Do you plan to?
Nope.
Really interesting. Okay,
Nope. I just I'm busy.
fair. Fair.
I don't, I guess if somebody comes to me with a stereo recording that they don't have the stems for and they need it chopped up and remixed.
Well, it's interesting because of this guy Ben Greenberg. I know Rebo went to him and had these bedroom. I don't even know if I should reveal this, but it's going to be coming out. I had these bedroom just cassette demos that he gathered over decades, and
Wow.
and Ben Greenberg basically he started playing around with AI, and it wasn't one of them didn't work, but he started doing composites of like 7 of them, and suddenly it started forming into something that sounded imaginative and professional, and it was kind of like it kind of opened up my eyes. I was like, holy shit.
But Kramer, I'm going to just put some words into your mouth and tell me if I'm wrong. It's like old school. Leave it to the younger guys to do all the magic with AI. I mean, you know where you come from, you know what you do best, and that doesn't necessarily it takes a knowledge of a technology that has existed, but within that is where you make the magic.
Yeah, that's a fairly accurate way of putting it. I mean, I have no attraction to it. If it can ever help me to achieve a creative goal that I want, that's fine. But I certainly would never use AI to help me to be creative.
Right. Yeah.
That's, I mean, I know people who work in television who say that AI is now creating the scenarios for episodes of sitcoms where writers can't decide what should the next episode be about. So they go to AI. AI creates a template for the episode, and then the writers get to work.
Well,
I
but
guess
also, I want to say, I want to interpret this, pulling it out of your brain.
Yeah.
A lot of what you've done is based on the personal experience of who you're working with, not
all of it,
not an impersonal,
all of it,
technological, adventure or advantage that is not what you are about. You are about a personal connection, doing things sometimes
collaboration,
minimally and sometimes not.
yeah, collaboration.
And there's a collaboration often between just a very intimate thing.
Yeah, it's all about John Cassavetes, right?
I love Cassavetes. Yeah.
Cassavetes said, I don't even care if the movie's great. What I care about is what happens to us as we are making it and how it directs us after the film is done. Now, he was kind of lying a little bit because we know he re-edited his films all the time. And he was at a couple of screenings where people love the movie and he'd take it and re-edit it so it'd be more difficult. He actually did that a couple of times. But his feeling was that the most important thing was the experience of creating it. And that's very important to me. But of course, I still put a lot of weight on the end product as well. I want everyone really happy forever, So,
yeah. What was your experience with the actor studio?
I had some bad experiences in music in the late 90s and I went away from it. And I was friends with Arthur Penn because he had directed a film called Penn and Teller Get Killed. And I was good friends with him. And when the whole thing with the music business came up, I was just really burnt out. I also had owned recording studios for 15 years, and the problem with owning a recording studio and being a record producer is that you're wearing 2 hats. And by the end of my tenure owning a studio and opening my door to different bands every day, I found that I was much more of a studio manager than anything else and that I needed a break. So I called Arthur Penn and I said, I think I'm done with music. I'm a director. Can you help me? And he said, come on down to the actor's studio. I'll make you a permanent observer. And I got down there and ran into Ellen Burstyn. And no. Who won the Oscar for Bonnie and Clyde?
Faye Dunaway?
Faye Dunaway.
No. She won.
Ellie Winters?
No. Oh my God. This is terrible. She's such a great actress. Great stage actress. Can't remember her name. She played the sister, the younger.
Looking it up.
Yeah, it's not Ellen Burstyn. Ellen Burstyn runs the studio now, along with the.
Well, Ellen Burstyn in Requiem for a Dream is just unparalleled performance.
Isn't that something?
Oh my word!
What a performance.
What a great film based on such a great book.
Yep.
Lucky I was to work with Hubert
Yep.
Selby Jr. myself.
Yeah. What's her name? Oh my God, I can't
I
believe.
know we're getting there. I know. I'm looking
I
for
can't believe it.
Estelle Parsons.
Estelle Parsons. And so Arthur brought me into her office and said, Kramer is my friend. We will make him a permanent observer. And she said, well, what are his credits?
105 LPs. I don't know.
And Arthur said, he's my friend and he's my only directing student. And he's going. And I watched her argue with him as though I wasn't even there. It was fascinating. This was my first up close view of what actors are really like. Next person I ran into was Harvey Keitel, who had a similar disdain for someone who had absolutely no business being in the actor's studio at all. And then they started talking about, Harvey Keitel said, I auditioned 31 times before they made me a member. And the next guy I think was Paul Newman, 26 times. So this is a long standing.
Whoa.
Harvey freaking Keitel.
Harvey Keitel, 31 times, and now he's
who was great out of the gate.
Yeah, out of the
first
gate.
movies, he was amazing.
And then Bad Lieutenant comes along. And
amazing.
Is there anything better ever?
Well, we can go back to
I view it as a comedy, but
Knocking Fingers. There's any number of great ones. So you would go and observe.
I sat next to Arthur and I listened and I observed and I watched and I learned, and some people were very, very kind to me. Eli Wallach was amazing. His wife, Anne, oh God, Anne Bancroft was amazing. So many people. Anybody who loved Arthur treated me great. Anybody who saw Arthur as competition treated me like absolute shit. There was a lot of stuff going on there. There was the old guard, which Arthur was the head of, and the new guard, which was the older actors who had come into power in this place, and they really, really felt like this was an actor's laboratory.
Right. That's it, and get out.
Yeah, and this is what we do. We just work on scenes here. This is a scene study place. We are honing our craft. And Arthur felt that they should be putting on plays. And just to put a stick up their ass, he built his own theater on 42nd Street and 11th Avenue, or so, where those tiny, tiny little theaters were. And it had 99 seats because if you had 100, you had to put in a wheelchair ramp. And we put on plays there, and I worked with him for years. And first play we put on was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And
my favorite. Well, first of all, one of my absolute favorite films, stellar performances by all involved.
Oh, amazing!
Absolutely fantastic. I watch it every year. I cannot not watch it. It's just
beautiful soundtrack too. The solo flute.
It's wonderful. No,
absolutely beautiful.
I always think summertime is Elizabeth Taylor review time. Suddenly last summer, Who's Afraid of Virginia?
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And you didn't mention Reflections in a Golden Eye.
Oh yes, can't forget that one.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. And then on opening night, oh my God, yeah, 65 years old. Memory is going really bad. The playwright showed up the first night, and he had some notes at the end of the show. Oh, another hilarious story was there was one night that I was talking to Arthur at the back of the theater, and a man came up, and Arthur looked at him kind of, they didn't smile at each other. They just shook hands. They talked for a few minutes about something nondescript. He didn't acknowledge me at all. And then he said, I've got to go talk to the actors. Kramer, why don't you talk to this is my brother Irving. Why don't you talk to him for a while? So I talked to him for like 20 minutes or so before we sat down. And it was right before the end of the second act that I thought, Irving Penn?
Okay.
I just spoke to Irving Penn for 20 minutes, and I spoke to Arthur about it the next day, and they had been estranged for a very long time. Arthur lived on the Upper West Side by the park, and Irving lived way downtown, and they didn't talk much, but they would attend each other's major events dutifully, obligatorily, and then depart and not speak again for long periods of time. Yeah, Irving Penn.
I mean, it must have been a very different atmosphere, or was it, between hanging out at your studio producing a bunch of weirdos and playing at CBGBs and going to Europe with the Butthole Surfers. And then which people came to you because they knew what you were made of and what you're, the soul of what you did. And then you're being just kind of snubbed because the people you're going to observe have no idea what you or who you are.
Yeah, it was a great tonic. It was really went from being highly respected to being constantly dissed. But I spent but I spent most of my time in Arthur's theater, and we were working with actors who were honing their craft, and they all loved me. And then we went to Broadway and did a play called Fortune's Fool with Alan Bates, who's one of the sweetest men who ever lived. And Frank Langella, who was the most amazing pain in the ass, but what an actor. What an actor. Just
did he play Dracula or
he
something?
He did. And my daughter
one of the versions.
Yeah, my daughter was really into it, and opening night was her 10th birthday, and Frank just loved her. It was
when you say pain in the ass, what would that be like?
Oh, he was just hard. We had a toupee made for him, at the cost of thousands of dollars, and an hour before the first performance, he announced that he wasn't going to wear it. And
okay.
It was just constant, like, I'm the actor, I'm the one on stage, I have a lot at risk here. You're the director, you're off in the wings, you're not risking anything. That was kind of, there are difficult actors, like Donald Sutherland and Frank Langella and people who are constantly.
What are the difficult musicians you've worked with?
Difficult musicians.
But they're coming to you mostly.
Is that lead singers or bigger like superstars, or is it just kind of random?
Those aren't the things that remain at the front of my mind after sessions are over. When you say difficult is like they do the vocals and it's great, and then the next day they come in and say they need to do all the vocals again. That's difficult.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that as a producer, I have to
rein in.
Yeah, I have to rein it in if they're wrong, or deal with it if it's something that I gauge as being something that they're not able to overcome, some kind of insecurity thing. Like if I'm dealing with a singer or a guitarist who feels that it's got to be right, it's got to be this way, I tend to work with those people once and never again, because the great things that happen in the studio and the things that make great records are the accidents that occur, the things that you don't have planned. I've done so many records with guitarists who will do a solo, and a great example is Sean Eden played guitar on one of my solo records called Songs from the Pink Death, and he would play something and say, okay, let me do it again, and I'd say, but what you just did was great, and he'd say, oh, but that wasn't what I planned, and I said, I don't care, come in and listen to this. Come in and listen, and he'd listen to it and go, wow, that was really weird, and I'd say, yeah, and it was really good, now go out there and do something else. So if I'm working with someone who trusts me and will allow themselves to be directed, like an actor who will allow himself to be directed in a film, there's a possibility of making magic happen. But if you're going to go into the studio with things
with a strict concept that it has to be this way,
then you're not going to make an interesting record, and you're certainly not going to create chords or sounds that have never been heard before.
It's so interesting with how the palette of society has changed to modern popular music with the quantized time and the absolute perfect sine wave pitch. Right? It just, maybe it's me. It feels like I'm eating Wonder Bread or something. I don't know.
That's not music. That's like
it's
commercial
so bizarre to me.
for the fucking ears.
I promise you, the Beatles never went to lunch in the middle of a session and then said, oh, let's skip dessert and go back and look at those wave files and see if we can quantize them.
Let's call in the other 9 writers that wrote this song and see if we can't change that one line that I can't think of. When you were hanging out at the Actor Studios, is that when you started to make solo stuff that was more music for film, more instrumental stuff of your own?
Yeah, I'd always been doing instrumental stuff. I don't think it really had, that's a very, very separate genre and discipline, writing music for films and music for theater. I did all of the music for all of Arthur's plays, including the Broadway play, and I was his assistant director, though not in the credits on Broadway, because they have this thing called the union.
Yeah.
And so that kind of kept my name off that part of the poster, which was, I don't know.
So you weren't in the union, you're saying?
No, I was not in the union. So my name was on the poster as the composer of the music, but the work that I did as assistant director was sort of under the table.
What was the benefit or deficit of being in the union? Union dues, or did you have to have a certain amount of union practices?
Well, which union? First of all, I mean, there's
the directors union.
directors union. Okay.
Assistant directors were part of the directors union. But the first night on Broadway, I walked across the stage and something wasn't quite on its mark, and I kind of just nudged it with my foot.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of a sudden, this little guy, like built like a little cannonball, charged at me across the stage and screamed, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then he ran off the stage, and Arthur came up to me and said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, something was off its mark and I just moved it." And he said, "Oh shit." And 15 minutes later, there were union guys there. I wasn't allowed to touch anything.
They're not. No.
Yeah, it was kind of mobster-like. They were physically threatening. I mean, they didn't say, "I'm going to kill you," but they were hovering over me like they wanted to.
Well, it's a you know that I'm sure you read this article. You know what the average annual salary for a Carnegie Hall stagehands is?
What, 120?
450.
What?
Look it up. That's the average. Now it's a 60-hour week. You work on weekends and during holidays because the big productions. But I think there's only 10 or 12 full-time stagehands. But that's a very powerful. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you how. I got another great story for how powerful they are. This play, Fortune's Fool, took place between around September and January. These stagehands were right at the side of the stage watching football on a tiny little TV with the volume up.
Okay.
And there was nothing we could do about it. So for the entire, obviously this was only on Saturday and Sunday for the football games, for the matinee and all that.
Sure.
And you couldn't hear it from the stage. Like I went out in the audience and you could not hear this, but right at the side of the stage and
it's distracting. Yeah.
Were these guys, like 3 or 4 guys, and 2 or 3 of them, they never did anything. These guys, they never did.
Like when you see 5 construction workers on the side of the road, one guy's working.
Right, because the union says you have to have that many guys there. So it was a pretty weird thing.
Hey, do you now that you're in North Carolina, I don't know what your relationship is with Eugene Chadbourne, but he's like 2.5 hours, 3 hours from you.
I think Greensboro's a little further, but I've had no relation with him, no relationship at all since
1984.
Since 1985 when the band broke up.
Wow.
He was not happy with me. I was not happy with him.
All right, that happens.
Yeah, and I've actually heard people tell me that he said that his least favorite band and project of his entire career was Shockabilly, and I know that's not true. I know that's not true.
But he's talked to me about it with no kind of anger or.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. He kind of bragged about it.
Look, Eugene Chadbourne, like personally, we will never get along again, but every single night that guy would get up on stage and out Hendrix every fucking night. And I don't mean 1 or 2 solos a night. I mean every fucking song. Sometimes he just stopped me dead in my tracks. I'm just looking at him and listening to what he's doing. How does this guy do this shit? It's amazing. Greatest. And now he's turned himself into the world's greatest banjo player, pretty much. He's
I guess the mountains will do that to you.
He's absolutely amazing. By far the greatest musician that I've ever shared a stage with. Maybe not in the studio, but on a stage.
Did anyone ever, some kind of executive or someone, like a huge production? Did they ever decide what your musicians were, or did you always pick your own roster on any given production? Were there ever people that are kind of higher up, where depending on money coming from a higher place or anything like that? No.
I've worked for major labels like 3 times, and each time it was for bands that's whose lineup was set. I produced a King Missile record for Atlantic. Oh God, what a terrible experience it was.
Okay.
They wanted to hear like rough mixes.
Dailies?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I just refused, and they said, "Well, you'll never work for us again." And I said, "That's
Oh, well."
I mean, because everyone has their process. I just couldn't even imagine being micromanaged like that.
I refused. I'm not going to play that game. It's not worth the money, and it's not worth the results that I know I'd get from that kind of process. And the band was very happy about it, because everything that I refused to do was something more that they didn't have to refuse to do. They could simply say, "Oh, Kramer doesn't want to do that." So, but they were perfectly, in line with me and my feelings on the whole thing.
Well, it's interesting because when I think about some of the 70s and 80s producers with major labels, of course, you have like the auteur one, And then you have the old school kind of crack a whip, everything on schedule one that basically get in line and, hey, sneak in the session musicians at night when the Rockstar kids are off partying. And I guess, well, you're the auteur one. You're not, you're not one of these.
And back to kind of what I said earlier, Kramer, your whole creative life is about a few things, sort of like mine and like Tim's. It's like, you want to work with people that you're going to create something that doesn't exist anywhere else except for within that cubby. You want to do stuff, you want to continue to do stuff that's stretching the boundaries, or you find a pocket and you want to continue to explore that, going as deep as you can into it. And you want the experience to be enlightening and enriching, and you want the product to be something you're proud of. And you don't want somebody hanging over your freaking head trying to conduct what you're doing, because that's not what we do. We are still all stubbornly independent. We are relentless. We are not stopping. And that's why you're Kramer, and that's why this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tyndall, and Kramer.
Well said.
That's what we do.